Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour. My name is Draxtor Dupre. I'm here in the basement and today I'm welcoming Amber Lee Dodd. Hello, Amber.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Now, Amber, we need to disclose something. Your equipment is that of a writer, which is
low tech notebooks and an iPad, which is the fanciest I get.
Notebooks and an iPad. So how come you're here with me in the virtual world? Are we cheating? Are we making stuff up?
I think we're bending the rules. I like to think we're bending the rules. A little bit of magic.
But on full disclosure, because I used to be a journalist, now I'm just playing one in virtual reality. We are conducting this interview in a very, very sophisticated mixed reality setup, and the lovely fox that is made by Silas Merlin that we can see here is composited after the fact. How do you like your fox?
Well, I am a fox. This is me. This is what I look like. Let's not ruin the illusion. I'm a fox who writes books.
And that brings us right into the book because your second book, first things first, We Are Giants is a book about a mother who has dwarfism and her two children are able-bodied. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, I have a background of working with children and young adults with disabilities, and I worked with some children who had dwarfism. And then I started writing this book after taking another job working in school as a learning support assistant with children with disabilities and learning disabilities and behaviour issues. And one of my students just was so turned off by books because he said there's just no reflection of what it's like, to have a disability, or if it is, it's a very preachy book. There's just no characters who are just living their lives. And I'd love to say, and then I went and wrote the book, but it wasn't quite like that. I wanted to write something, and I think just those experiences sort of bubbled up into We Are Giants. I just loved exploring this relationship of what if your family isn't like everyone else's family? What does that look like, and what do you feel like, and what is change like for you? I mean, the book is really about change, moving houses, moving cities, moving schools, and change within your family, losing a parent, and literally growing up, a very literal exploration of growing up, but when your family's different.
I need to add that what I also found really impressive, and this is in line of how you came into writing this book, when the boy said, I don't see myself reflected. You ground this disability into a really incredibly normal family environment with all these challenges that we all have with having to move, in this case, sort of a downsizing because a business doesn't work out, that the father has passed on, there's a boyfriend in the picture, and all this kind of stuff from the kid's point of view. Those are challenges that every person who's growing up is facing. But sorry, carry on.
Sorry, I started with this idea, which just kind of came in the middle of the night of a girl and her mum, and her mum had dwarfism, and she doesn't want to grow up. She doesn't want to be bigger than her mum, and it's really about feeling like you're losing a connection with your parent when you've just lost another parent. And that was it. I just that idea and that I could hear the characters' voices so clearly that just became sort of steamrolled into the book.
This is funny because my son is so much taller than I am right now. So when we say, you are losing a relationship with someone, and that is the core of anything that is related to our human existence, because we move and we grow and we shrink and all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's quite a literal,
very literal in that sense, and she does
very literal showing of a relationship changing with someone. But I think really what the book is about is her worrying that she's going to lose her mum, lose its connection with her mum through this, because she's already lost her dad. And it just, once I had that idea, I just knew what the character wanted, and I could just feel the story expanding from there. When you write books, you have so many ideas, and you have to pick the one that you go, oh yeah, there's lots here, there's lots to discover in this.
This is something that I always like to explore with authors is the process, and we're going to go sort of back and forth between. I'm going to throw in some questions about that, but since we're already on the subject, I mean, how do you do this? What's your relationship with your inner voice who tells you? I remember an interview with Russell Brand once, and the interviewer said, wow, you seem so enthusiastic about your ideas, where does this energy come from? And he was laughing and said, yeah, I'm enthusiastic, but the problem is I can also be very enthusiastic about really bad ideas. You see, like he's pursuing something that is going nowhere. So this is something every creative person is sort of struggling with, I guess, cultivating a relationship with, I don't know, with intuition or whatever it is. How do you do this? I mean, how did you know that this is the path forward and not another one? Were there other voices who wanted to send you off into a different direction, for example?
I think I got sort of nearly halfway through this book, and I originally had quite a different idea of where it was going to go. I thought maybe there'll be much more magical realism, but I took a break and decided that this story was grounded very much in reality. I think the magic of books is you only get to see the final version, the good version, the publishable version, and there are like 7 or 10 drafts which are rubbish that no one gets to see. So books do go off on tangents that are just, I'm writing one right now, and I know it's gone off on a sort of a ropey tangent, and I'm going to have to rewrite lots of it, like I did with my second book. So, it's a bit of an illusion. You do go off tangent, and that's why you have like people reading to sort of rein you back in. And but I think the good ideas that you follow through, they're the ones which stick with you. They're the ones where the character voices come really quickly. If you're writing and your character voice doesn't come, I mean, I write in first person, so it's much easier for me. If I can't hear that character voice, then there's not a book or a story there.
I interviewed Liz Jensen, and I think she said she abandoned 3 or 4 ideas that were very, very already sort of fleshed out. And I believe she said it was 2 years that, were not flushed down the toilet, because it's a learning process, and then you take those things and then you put them into to the thing that then finally actually is being executed towards the end. How do you deal with this? Are you a patient person to begin with? I mean, this is what is required, I guess. That wiring to then get up the next day and go like, okay, no, this was rubbish, but we're moving on.
I don't know if I'm patient. I would say no to that. I think I'm stubborn. I think that's what you need as a writer. You need to be incredibly stubborn. Just keep going back and going, no, I'll do this, or I'll rewrite this. I'm trying to be kinder to myself now and say, I'm going to write first draft and it's going to be really rubbish, but that's okay. I can chuck 80% out and rewrite. So that's how I'm trying to become a better writer and nicer to the people around me at the same time while I'm writing.
Well, the Weird Giants book, and we're going to go to your other book, which Lightning Chased Me Home, which is much more. I was surprised. I love that book too, but it was surprising that you chose to write something, write a magical realism novel here. And I thought, like, oh, is there going to be some sort of a reveal at some point? And you just left it there. It was good, and it was coherent, and it totally worked out for me. But we'll get to that later. The Weird Giants book, again, I'm so impressed that you did not fall into, I don't know if we call it a trap, but it's certainly a challenge to not put disability in there as a prop. I mean, one of my friends here from the Sansar community and also from Second Life, she's a writer herself, Daisy, has dwarfism, and she actually recommended this book to me. Said,
oh, that's lovely. That's really great.
And she has, I don't know if she still does it, but as a job, she was reading. She was sent manuscripts, and she was tasked to evaluate the how disability was sort of incorporated into the novel and into the narrative. And at one point, she says to me, I can't do this anymore. It's just, there's so much bad stuff out there, and they're all doing the same stuff. It's like put in there as a prop or something. Yeah, and you didn't fall into these traps, but I guess it's because you set out to have this at the core, and I guess your initial goal was to write something for readers to reflect, to be reflected in that, and fill that void in the market.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's really lovely to hear, and it's really great to hear from people who are in that community who read it and enjoy it. I must admit, before it came out, I did have a bit of a panic that it would come out and people would hate it. So I'm glad that isn't the case. Yeah, I've also read some books that I feel like don't do a fantastic job. Usually books that have been published a decade ago, which don't hold up so well.
Was it that the disability was a prop, or maybe there was sort of this, I think another thing that disabled folks really hate is where there's sort of a simplistic, redemption sort of narrative that people then all of a sudden are healed or whatnot.
Someone's walks again, and or they learn to be like what Katie.
Yeah.
Their disability makes them a better person. I hope we're beyond those kind of stories now. I think the problem is they stop looking at people as people, and they just look at people for their disability, or and that's just bad writing. That's bad writing when you only look at a character through one defining feature.
Did you have consultants in that area, or did somebody help you? Or
I did. I had a woman with the same kind of dwarfism as Amy, Sinead Burke, read through an earlier draft and give any comments, whether I was being unrealistic, or whether I was doing something that might be controversial or not fitting for the character, and that was really helpful. There were a couple of notes on physicality where I'd gotten the physicality wrong, where I had Amy reaching for something that she couldn't reach for, or I had a character who picked her up and I was like, no, she would be too heavy for this to happen, and those were really helpful notes, because obviously I don't have dwarfism, so it's easy to get those things wrong, and if you get the small details wrong, you kind of undermine your character. So that was really, really interesting.
One thing that you put in there, which is wonderful comic relief, is when the mother is using a full-size car. She has a special car where the gas pedal and the brakes are higher up because she can't reach down, and then she's forced to use that quote-unquote normal car, and the daughter then basically pushes down the gas pedal, and it's not only incredibly funny, but it's also, again, them getting back together as a team, I guess. They're rebonding, like they're doing both of them are operating this car together. The mother is steering with the feet dangling, and the daughter is squished down there and pushing the gas pedal. It's awesome.
That was a fun scene to write. Wouldn't recommend anyone does that in real life, just in the books.
When the book's coming out in America, you will have a disclaimer on it.
Yeah, I have to.
You mentioned earlier you work with kids with disability and behavioral issues. My mother was a special ed teacher. I talk about this a lot. To me, it was normal to grow up with people who look different, who behave different. And only sort of growing up then later, I realized that is not normal. I mean, for people, there's an issue. People have problems to interact with people with disabilities. This is something that we do not learn unless we work in that field or we grow up with someone with disability. Is that something that you're hoping that your book may contribute to, or is that something that is addressed when you do appearances? Related question: are you doing appearances in schools, or how does that work, and what's the feedback there, and what are the kids asking?
Yeah, I do school visits. Honestly, a lot of the questions about the book are just questions about the characters. I don't actually get that many specific questions about disability, or any specifics for Amy. People just want to know about the characters, which I think is just the best reaction I could get, because they're just engaging with them as characters, which is the highest compliment. Occasionally I get questions of how exactly high is she, so I'll do the height with my hands, or why do people have dwarfism, which I try and address, and why do Jade and Sydney not have dwarfism, which I talk a little bit about, and they're always asked in just the most polite, just open, wanting to understand and learn kind of ways. So it's really lovely actually talking about the book.
And I mean, I guess this is a no-brainer. A question that I asked about that I mean, there is at least the potential that this contributes to, by having it so grounded in a normal using that terrible word all the time, but in a something that happens to all of us narrative, that kids who read this get used to, maybe they carry that out into their everyday life when they interact or when they encounter someone with a physical disability that is visible.
Yeah, I think kids are sponges. They take everything in their stride really quickly, so much better than adults. So I think there's much more of a push for more diversity being shown on television and in movies. I mean, we're so not there in any way, but every society goes through change. It's such a different change to when I grew up, when in my school it was actually illegal to talk about gay people at all. The teacher could be fired. It's such it's such a change that I think people just react with fear.
Let's just hope this is a small vocal minority that wants to turn the clock back, and we are moving forward to a more inclusive society. Now, before we go to your second book, is the life of a writer glamorous? Are you showered with, do you have two people counting the cash coming in? Give us a little reality check. I asked this question to everybody who's coming because I think it's important.
God. No. No, basically, it's not glamorous. It's a very odd life. There are moments of mad things, like I'm going to be flown out to Romania to do a book launch for this new book in Romania, and I'm going to be in Marie Claire magazine, which is kind of just insane. And I'm going to be doing the Edinburgh International Festival with some of my all-time kind of literary heroes. So you go from sort of big highs to
having to clean the oven or the kitchen or whatever, or sorting the mail.
You're working 5 jobs at the same time, and not being able to afford bus fare, kind of stuff. It's a lot. It's not a life for many people. I wouldn't recommend it for many people. It's a life full of highs and lows, and not much in between. It
really requires dedication and I guess also support from family, friends, and fans, and to keep you going. often on the book Twitter, you see or you hear, if you enjoy a writer, if you want this stuff to continue, if you want books to continue, then buy a book, send some good thoughts to a writer. I try to, as a reader who I try to do that. Speaking of reading, why are you writing when nobody reads?
I think it's not true. I think more people are reading more than ever. Maybe it's not books, but we're certainly on our phones and our tablets and whatever, and we're reading. We're consuming more written words than I think any generation has in history. I really think that. And children's books in the UK, at least, are having a boom. We're selling more children's books, and I have to say that with the strength of the titles coming out, I think we're going through. It's even the press is calling it a golden era of children's fiction right now. We've got some just absolutely stunning books coming out, which is very annoying because I want my book to be the best. So I just don't think it's true that no one's reading. I think when people say that, they mean I'm not reading.
I think so, but I don't have any statistics. It's maybe because I work in this audiovisual medium and I interact with wonderful people, and we do have a book club here in Sansar, and so there are people who are interested in reading, and we have engaging discussions. But very often, I talk to people who, they have read a book a required book in high school, and that was sort of the last book they read, and that to me is a little bit sad, and I don't want to diminish the validity or even sort of the art of other forms of entertainment. I'm not saying that they're necessarily bad, but there is something that is so powerful about imagining things in your mind's eye from the written word that is just fundamentally different from a film, a video game, or any other sort of audiovisual entertainment. Even a well-made radio play. I come from radio. I mean, I'm a huge fan. They did the German public radio did a version of the Three-Body Problem of Xi Liu's absolutely epic sci-fi novel. I'm like, oh my God, that's why I pay that. I love that's what please let me pay more taxes for my public radio system if you do this stuff more. But I guess, I don't know if that's a question or just a lament of an old grumpy dude. There is enormous competition in other fields how to spend your time. In the UK, are there efforts to entice kids to read? For example, Oprah Winfrey in the US is with her book club. I mean, she affects millions of people. If she puts this up in her book club, and there's some other examples, that book is 2 million sold the next day, basically. Is there something like that the UK does, maybe with kids' books? Or
honestly, no. We're selling the most children's books in decades. But the promotion of children's books has never been worse. The Guardian used to review children's books on a regular basis and no longer does it. They cut it a couple of years ago completely.
That is bizarre. I mean, it doesn't really hurt them. I mean, they could.
I know, and at a time when more people are reading children's books, and not just children. I think a lot of adults and young adults are turning to children's and YA novels because we're living in uncertain times, and they're very comforting. They just don't get any mainstream review coverage. It's very limited. It's the worst it's ever been, and publicity of books is actually not great either unless you are a celebrity author, where a lot of promotion, a lot of marketing, and a lot of money goes. I think if we started to get more of that, we would develop a far bigger readership, and we'd be able to compete more with television and movies, because they have marketing budgets of billions. The average writer might get a marketing budget of hundreds.
You're with Scholastic. I'm imagining they have a good network of sending you out to schools, maybe, or to present it. Such. What are some of the things that you do on your own to promote your books?
Well, I do a lot of events that I arrange kind of separately through my website. So people can book me to do two events. Social media is a huge platform for talking to teachers and schools about books. I mean, I think that's the best way to reach out.
And that's where teachers look too. I mean, I talk to a lot of teachers. They look.
Twitter is a really big platform for that, and reaching out and chatting and trying to get teachers enthused about your books, or sending schools free copies. So a lot of promotion is pretty much done that way. There's not a lot of other avenues for me to sort of promote books, and also reviews really count. Getting reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, that really helps authors. So if you want to support an author, please leave them a nice review on Amazon or Goodreads, because it does help books spread, and you get if you get a certain amount of reviews on Amazon, you get promoted more.
You're doing well. You're flown to Romania. You're flown into the virtual world as the fox that you actually are in real life, as everybody knows. You're just sort of hiding behind that human costume, I think, that you bought somewhere, and you take off that bodysuit at night, of course, and when you hang out with your fox friends in that fox community, as we understand.
Yeah, we hang out in our little den in the bottom of the garden.
So we just have about 10 minutes left. Your second book is Lightning Chase Me Home, which is pretty awesome too. It does not wrap it up neatly. Not that We Are Giants is wrapping it up neatly, but what I found fascinating is I thought that there was actually a great growth and transition, and that does not mean that God, I put my foot in my mouth. Like, this sounds like, oh, your first book, that was a nice try, but here you're really mature. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I mean to say is the fact that in Lightning Chase Me Home, there is a family issue that affects the girl at the center, and that's not really resolved. I'm not going to say what happens.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
You
I think maybe early on I had a vision for the ending which was slightly neater. As I was writing the story, I realised, I think, in the first draft of the book, that it wasn't going to have a neat and tidy ending, because it deserves to reflect reality with the issues it was dealing with. But it has a happy ending, it has a happy ending, it has a hopeful ending. Hopefully it has a satisfying ending. It just the ending, which I think We Are Giants has that to an extent too. I think that's a good ending. I think an ending which can show that you can change and things can get better and be okay despite your life not looking picture perfect is the endings I love in all books, not just children's fiction. Because I talk about this book a lot in schools, and I talk about being brave, and how the character here has to learn to be brave, not just with the fantastical elements, but to be brave in her own life, and also ask for help, because that's part of being brave. And to have a perfectly neat ending would kind of undermine that sort of message that I think hopefully comes through in the book.
Do you have beta readers?
I have my family read it sometimes, but as like children readers, no, not really. Some authors do, but I kind of give it to people that I trust, so maybe friends and family.
I just talked to a writer who had a lot in the beginning, Ksenia Anske, and then she cut down significantly. And I was always wondering how that can be a double-edged sword, because you might be derailed easily. I mean, I guess that depends on how you're wired and how your confidence has grown over the years in the particular craft that you're working in. But when you're sort of not sure about something, and then there's 50 beta readers who say this is garbage, you got to change it. Maybe then you're changing it, and that may be a mistake.
Yeah, I think someone much wiser than me said that when people universally say something's wrong, they're right. When they tell you how to fix it, they're universally wrong.
That is good. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And that's what I try and remember. So if I'm getting a lot of people going, no, I don't think this bit works, I know that they're probably right. And as an author, you kind of have to feel whether they're right or not. But as soon as someone goes, oh, if you do this, or if you have your character turn into an elephant or something, it's just not going to work. You have to start thinking about how to fix it yourself.
All right, so we're out of time. It's been really lovely, and congratulations to your success. And just even if you had no success, it wouldn't be flown all over the world. By the way, the time this interview airs, the wonderful Edinburgh Book Fest will be over. I'm still stuck in this virtual basement. They wouldn't let me out. God damn it! But even if that weren't the case, your books make a difference, and they're adding to a wonderful ecosystem in my mind. How do you remain social, promoting what you have, and working in sort of a solitary, concentrated fashion on the next thing? That to me, I think, is the core challenge of every freelancer, no matter what they do. Is you have to, on the one hand, you have to be out there, you have to communicate, you have to promote, and then you need to find pockets of solitude to get back into the flow. How does that work?
Not well. At the moment, I'm in between drafts and waiting for notes back on my new books that will be coming out next year. I don't think I can reveal the title as of yet because it might change. I think sometimes when you've got a big event, you kind of have to put your event hat on and then maybe clear yourself for a week, or just take some time off and prepare for whatever you're doing. If it's a school event, if it's a festival event, if it's a book fair event, you've got to kind of prepare yourself for that. And then sometimes you have to just go completely radio silent, take yourself off social media, and do a month of intensive writing and not go out.
But at this point, you don't have to worry too much about multiple day jobs or a day job, or. I freelance, so I do many different things, and probably will be looking to do kind of something more stable in the daytime while working on books as well. It kind of fluctuates. It fluctuates from having to work lots and lots of different things to having periods where you can kind of focus on the writing. But yeah, I have to be a little bit of the jack of all trades. You heard it here first, kids. If you want to have this life, then these are the parameters.
You won't get a lot of sleep.
Thank you, Amber. That was wonderful. I know you're going to all these other places, but I would say that your Fox embodiment and this virtual stuff, I would stipulate that this may be the highlight of your publicity tour.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing what I look like as a fox.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.